A lady slaps Evangeline, the villainess of this story, and she flops onto the floor. The lady scolds Evangeline, telling her to wash the rags instead of sleeping. Evangeline, also known as Eva, thinks to herself, questioning the use of her full name. She is shocked, wondering if the lady just called her Evangeline. Just then, another girl named Lashera, the heroine of this story, rushes to Eva, hugs her, and tells the lady to stop bullying Eva. The lady questions Lashera, asking why she's speaking up for what she perceives as a lowly foreigner. Lashera defends Eva, stating that Eva is not a foreigner. The lady expresses frustration, claiming that no one in the Empire of Charmel has silver blue hair, and she suspects Eva's purple eyes are the work of the devil. Eva wonders about the mention of the Empire of Charmel and Lashera, then realizes that those are the names of the country and protagonist from her novel. She recalls her past as a web novel writer, remembering her debut novel titled Servant Yesterday, Crown Princess Today, a simple story where a servant girl falls in love with a crown prince, leading to a happily ever after. The very first novel Eva wrote was published online, but it never saw the light of day. However, she never gave up on her dream of becoming a writer. One phone call was enough to push her to write day and night, but then she became so burned out that she was sucked into darkness. Eva is shocked, thinking about the cringy teenage dream she's experiencing. She can't believe she's inside her own novel. Eva is in disbelief as she asks Lashera if she's really Lashera. Lashera questions why Eva is asking such a question. Eva, surprised, points out that Lashera is calling her Eva, which is Evangeline's nickname. Concerned, Lashera asks if Eva is okay or if she has a fever again. Eva dashes away, leaving Lashera puzzled and asking where she's going. Eva stands in front of a mirror, looking at herself and realizing that she is Evangeline. She observes her appearance: brittle silver hair, cloudy violet eyes, and swollen lips from beatings, yet possessing a beauty no one can forget once they see her. Eva recalls her novel where Evangeline is the villainess who becomes the ninth queen with her fatal allure and tries to kill the heroine, Lashera. She realizes that the girl who spoke up for her is Lashera. Eva, feeling nervous, reflects on her role as Evangeline, the most ill-fated character who eventually dies after suffering at the hands of the heroine. She wonders what she's supposed to do now that she's living in the world of her novel. For the past 2 years, she has endured the lowest possible status, enduring daily beatings and constant starvation. And shortly after her 14th birthday, the fateful day when her character meets her end approaches. 2 years later, on Red Street, the Master calls out for Lashera and Evangeline to come to him. He announces that one of them will have an easier life from now on thanks to him. He explains that they will become the foster daughter of a noble who is bestowing his family name upon a child even lower in status than a maid, calling the situation a complete nutball. Eva hears this and recalls the mention of becoming the foster daughter of a noble, realizing it must be about Marquis Bannon. Panic sets in as Eva realizes she can't be taken away. Lashera holds Eva's hands, concerned, and asks if Eva is feeling okay. Eva remains silent. Lashera reminds Eva that the Master told them to come downstairs and urges her to go quickly. Eva, lost in thought, reflects on Lashera's kindness and sweetness, considering her the beloved heroine. Lashera suggests that Eva could be the foster daughter since she's the prettiest girl on Red Street. Eva flinches and hesitates, causing Lashera to pause in confusion. Eva finally speaks up, expressing her reluctance to be adopted. Surprised, Lashera questions Eva's decision, emphasizing the benefits of becoming a noble, including hot, delicious meals and brand-new silk dresses every day. Eva believes that if she isn't chosen, it's likely Lashera will be adopted. She can't bear the thought of the kind-hearted Lashera going to such a hellish place. Eva tells Lashera that she can never be happy if adopted by Marquis Bannon and pleads with her to promise not to be the one taken away. Lashera is puzzled, asking what Eva is talking about. Tears well up in Eva's eyes as she insists that Lashera might not believe her, but she knows this for certain. She implores Lashera to please promise her. Then a maid arrives, urgently telling Lashera and Evangeline to come downstairs right away. Lashera agrees, and Eva, thinking, recognizes the maid as Jessie. She remembers that Jessie was the maid who tortured them even more harshly than the evil master did. Eva comes up with an idea to save both of them. She approaches Jessie, trying to entice her, suggests to Jessie that she could also become a noble and offers to help her achieve it. Jessie, surprised, questions how someone like Eva could do that. Eva informs Jessie that they will be required to sing a song. She then leans in close and whispers into Jessie's ear, revealing that if she sings this particular song, she too can become a noble. Eva sings the song. Ah, bright spring petals flying by. After she finishes singing, Jessie confirms, stating that she just has to sing that song, right? Jessie practices singing the song. Eva warns Lashera not to make a sound, emphasizing that they are in trouble if the noble takes notice of them. Lashera nods in understanding. Lashera, Eva, and Jesse stand before Marquis Bannon. Bannon instructs them to sing The Empire of Spring, the Emperor of Winter. Excited, Jesse volunteers to go first. Eva knows that this was the song Bannon's late daughter used to sing in hopes that things will go well for Jesse. During Jesse's rendition, she makes a mistake and Eva, pleased by Jesse's misstep, thinks that Jesse is not helping their cause. To her shock, Lashera steps forward and starts singing the song. Eva becomes surprised at Lashera's unexpected decision. Eva whispers to Lashera, trying to stop her, asking what she's doing. She grabs Lashera's hand to prevent her from singing, but Lashera slaps her hand away. Eva is puzzled by Lashera's actions. Lashera continues singing, pleasing Bannon. Bannon smiles and decides to take Lashera. Suddenly, Eva pushes Lashera aside and tells Bannon that she's also good at singing, pleading with him to take her instead. She can't let Lashera be taken away. Bannon wonders what's up with Eva. The master intervenes, describing Eva as a lowly foreigner and Lashera as an angel in comparison. Bannon scoffs at Eva's plea. Bannon takes hold of Lashera's hand and leads her away. Eva urgently screams, pleading for Lashera not to be taken and offering herself instead. The master, irritated by Eva's outburst, shoves her, causing Eva to thud down. Angered, the master instructs Jesse to lock Eva up in the attic without allowing her even a sip of water. Jesse forcefully takes Eva away and Eva struggles, demanding to be let go. Eva watches as Lashera is taken away and cries out her name. However, when Lashera turns back to look at Eva, she gives Eva an evil smirk. Eva is puzzled by Lashera's reaction. Memories of Lashera's words come flooding back to Eva, recalling when Lashera told her that she could be the foster daughter because she was the prettiest girl on Red Street. In disbelief, Eva wonders about the transformation in Lashera from the sweet and kind girl she knew. Jesse forcefully pushes Eva into the attic, causing her to fall. She mocks Eva, calling her stupid for being tricked by Lashera. Eva, shocked by the revelation, tries to defend Lashera, but Jesse laughs it off. Jesse questions Eva's belief in Lashera's goodness, pointing out that Lashera wouldn't have stepped up to sing the song if she truly cared. She explains that Lashera was indicating Eva could be the one adopted, but the truth is different. Eva flinches and asks if Jesse was eavesdropping, but Jesse brushes it off, telling Eva to get a grip. Jesse questions that they are both slaves, but wondering why Eva was beaten up more often and fed less. Eva believes it's because Lashera is the beloved heroine, and she's the evil Evangeline. Eva tells her that it's because she looks like a foreigner. Jesse explains that Lashera took advantage of Eva's appearance and put her on the line for her own benefit. Hearing Jesse's words, Eva ponders the betrayal of the heroine, finding it unexpected and suffocating. She clenches her fists, realizing that Lashera is no longer the heroine. Eva comes to the realization that her story is taking a different course from the original one, and she starts to wonder if she herself is the heroine now. Hungry and thirsty, Eva remains trapped in the attic, enduring 2 weeks of starvation. She reflects on how the story has been changing since her arrival. In the original tale, only Lashera knew how to read and write, but in this world, Eva excels at it. She contemplates her character, realizing that Evangeline used to be just a pretty face, but she is different, having experienced moments of happiness and lived a fulfilling life, much like a story's heroine. Eva questions whether Lashera is also different in this version of the story and wonders why she didn't know. As she thinks it over, she recalls Lashera's cold stares and taunts, realizing that Lashera took advantage of her rather than helping. Trapped inside her book, Eva never questioned Lashera's actions. Eva feels sick, her head burning as tears flow from her eyes. Learning that Lashera was adopted into the Bannon family and suffered excruciating abuse she couldn't forget, Eva wonders if Lashera is enduring abuse now in her place. Feeling betrayed, Eva bites her lip, acknowledging that it was her who got betrayed and she shouldn't feel guilty. She realizes she's no longer just a writer, but simply Evangeline, subjected to the cruelty of those who enjoy bullying weaker individuals. Wiping her tears, Eva resolves not to die without fighting back. She decides to eliminate the source of all the misery in life, even if it was originally supposed to be Lashera's fate. Eva, holding a basket of flowers, looks around trying to figure out where she is. She struggles to remember what she wrote a long time ago, only recalling some dialogue in certain parts. Suddenly, she hears someone saying, "Your kind isn't allowed in here." This startles Eva, as she remembers the line from somewhere. A boy wearing a hat argues with a man, saying, "I want to buy some perfumed oil, so why can't I get into the store?" Eva dashes to find the boy because she realizes that while others might not recognize him, she does. Underneath a filthy tweed cap, there's dark hair and glistening emerald eyes. Eva recognizes Toes Whitaker, Lashera's Cinderella pumpkin carriage. Toes is arguing with the man. The man, angry, demands respect and tells Toes to get lost. Toes challenges the man for calling him a little punk and demands an apology. The man mocks Toes, questioning if he's a noble. Toes, frustrated, claims he is indeed a noble, but it's a secret. The man accuses Toes of lying and insults his parents, spitting in disgust. Toes, angered by the insult to his parents, forcefully slams his head into the man's stomach. The man falls heavily to the ground. Witnessing this, Ava recognizes it as the Whittaker family's superhuman strength, a super talent possessed by only a few nobles. This mysterious superpower is called super talent. The man, angered by Toes' reaction, calls him a monster and threatens to drag him to the guard for a lesson. Hearing this, Eva becomes concerned for Toes. She interrupts, shouting at the man to wait, reminding him that he insulted Toes' parents first. She questions if it's appropriate for an adult to behave this way towards a kid. The man, sweating, asks who she is. In anger, Eva shouts at him, questioning why he cares. Toes flinches in response. Eva gently asks Toes if he's all right. Toes, surprised, panics and questions her identity. Eva hesitates but gathers herself, reminding herself to talk like a heroine. With a confident beam, she tells Toes that she's just a village girl passing by. Toes glances at the annoyed man and questions why she's asking him if he's okay when the man is on the ground. Eva hesitates but tries to cover, suggesting that Toes is the one really hurt because the man likely didn't recognize him as a noble with his hair covered. Toes remains silent, prompting Eva to continue expressing her thoughts. She tries to engage Toes in conversation, but he ignores her and walks off, leaving Eva shocked and irritated by the unexpected turn of events. She realizes that things didn't go as planned and feels frustrated about not even getting her name acknowledged. Rushing after Toes, Eva attempts to continue the conversation and asks for his name. Toes remains silent, prompting Eva to nervously smile and introduce herself as Evangeline. Toes pauses and asks why she wants to know his name, making Eva nervous. She hesitates because she wants to become friends with him and live at his house. She knows that the Whittakers are the greatest noble family in the Empire, even greater than the royal family, and to avoid her death sentence, she needs to be adopted. Toes informs Eva that his brother taught him to be cautious of strangers who approach without reason. He questions why she doesn't just continue on her way if she was just passing by. Frustrated, Eva sighs but smiles, impressed by Toes' intelligence. She wonders about the kind of character Toes was meant to be in her story. Toes Whittaker, age 10, is described as a curious and mischievous boy. His weakness is his shorter-than-average height. However, if you avoid mentioning his height or his mom, he's rather gentle. A man approaches Toes from behind, grabbing his collar and exclaiming, "Gotcha. Who let you sneak out all the way here?" Toes tries to escape from his grip, squirming and flailing, pleading, "Let go of me, brother." The man notices Eva and inquires about her identity. Eva gasps as she recognizes Toes' brother, Cadel Whittaker, the Duke's successor. He's renowned as the greatest swordsman, having been knighted at the youngest age of 18. His nickname is the Empire's Mad Dog, and he is known as the Crown Prince's best friend, as well as the heroine's adopted brother and bodyguard. Cadel is a supporting character who struggles between love and friendship. Eva's mouth hangs wide open as she thinks about Cadel. She marvels that this character is supposed to be good-looking, but he's even more handsome than she expected. She notes that his charm lies in his roughness and finds it sexy. Cadel notices Eva's behavior and appears puzzled. Eva respectfully bows and introduces herself as Evangeline, claiming she was just around the corner. However, Cadel sees through her lie, pointing out that he witnessed her approaching his little brother. Eva becomes anxious in his presence. An angry Cadel interrogates Eva, asking who sent her, whether it's the nobility or the imperial family. Panicking, Eva tries to divert the attention, claiming she was merely watching the young master because he was cute. Cadel is unconvinced, stating, "You're kidding me." Eva shouts back, insisting that she's telling the truth and has never even been off Red Street. Cadel, surprised, questions her mentioning Red Street. Eva freezes, realizing that every citizen's reaction to Red Street is mostly the same contempt and silence. She reflects on the harsh reality that women on Red Street were paid for their smiles, while girls like her were whipped and sold as slaves. Despite the Empire banning slavery, it kept silent. Toes, curious, asks Cadel about Red Street. Cadel dismisses Toes, stating he's too young to know about it. Toes insists, expressing his desire to learn more. Excitedly, Toes turns to Eva, asking her to tell him about Red Street. Eva explains that Red Street is where the slaves live and admits that she is one of them. However, Cadel disapproves and becomes angry, grabbing Eva's hand and telling her to stop telling Toes nonsense. Tearfully, Eva glares at him as Cadel walks off, instructing Toes to follow. Eva calls out to Cadel, expressing that she means no harm and apologizing for claiming to be a village girl. However, she continues, stating that it's good that he cares for his little brother, but advises him to teach Toes about certain matters. Cadel looks on questioningly. Eva bends down to pick a flower, explaining that even if he keeps Toes in the dark about the issue, it won't go away. She emphasizes that Toes could end up being the only one who doesn't know about it, making him look like a fool. Cato scoffs at Eva's bluntness, questioning her audacity. Eva maintains a smile, acknowledging the delicacy of speaking to nobility so frankly and offering Cato the option to report her if he finds her remarks unpleasant. Frustrated, Cato begins to speak, but Eva quickly bows and excuses herself, addressing him as "my lord." As Eva walks away, she halts momentarily, feeling fearful and trembling, tears welling up. She realizes that she has complicated the situation by antagonizing a supporting character. With the slave auction approaching in just a few days, she wonders if she can find a way to save herself. Eva comes to a realization about the original story's plot. In the narrative, Lashera helps Toes, leading him to throw a tantrum for a week to adopt her. Eventually, Cato heads to Red Street for his brother. Eva acknowledges that today is the day, but she doubts Cato will choose to take her. Jessie approaches Eva from behind, pulling her hair and smirks. Eva is in pain and cries out. Jessie threatens to beat Eva until she bleeds again, pulling her hair even harder. Eva cries out in pain, thinking that she's going to be punished for this. Suddenly, Cato's voice interrupts, telling Jessie to let go of Eva. Eva is surprised to hear Cato's voice. Jessie questions Cato, asking why he cares about Eva. Cato responds that Jessie is hurting Eva, and Jessie dismisses it as none of his business. Cato, getting serious, doesn't understand why Jessie isn't listening. Jessie becomes nervous as Cato grabs her hand, causing pain. Cato emphasizes that if it hurts for Jessie, it hurts for Eva too, urging her to lead him to Eva's master. Teary-eyed, Jessie expresses surprise, asking if Cato is aware that Eva is a slave. Cato acknowledges that Eva is an arrogant slave trying to teach lessons to nobles. As Eva sees Cato's face, she blushes, noticing his good looks. She thinks to herself, he's seriously good-looking. Cato notices her unusual behavior and smiles in response. Cato approaches Eva's master and straightforwardly says, "Sell her to me." The master responds, stating that he has previously explained he can't sell her and suggests participating in the auction next month. Cato insists that a month is too long, mentioning his brother waiting. As Cato looks at Eva, she notices and flinches. The master informs him that slaves can only be traded through auctions. Cato scoffs, mentioning Marquis Bannon taking the girl recently, leaving the master startled at this revelation. Cato doesn't mince words, pressuring Eva's master not to feign ignorance and hints at Marquis Bannon's recent visit. The master, intimidated, agrees to sell Eva, though he wonders how Cato obtained the information. Despite his hesitation, the master mentions the high demand for Eva and his compromised credibility. Cato, undeterred, inquires about the price, to which the master confidently quotes at least 600 gold. Hearing the exorbitant price, Eva is shocked, but knowing that Cato pays 10 times more in the original story. Cato boldly requests a discount, leaving both Eva and her master in shock. Eva wonders if the Duke's successor is negotiating the price for her life. The master insists on Eva's unparalleled beauty, describing her silver blue hair and violet eyes like a fairy. However, Cato points out her deteriorating condition from starvation and the numerous wounds on her body, challenging the master's perspective. The master is left without a valid response to Cato's compelling arguments. Eva blushes upon hearing the conversation about herself. She accepts the notion that spending 600 gold on a wounded slave like her would indeed be wasteful. However, she finds Cato's bargaining stance quite stingy. Cato boldly offers to purchase her for just 5 gold, shocking both Eva and her master. The master refuses, stating he bought her for 50 gold and raised her for many years. Cato coldly rebuts, accusing the master of abuse rather than raising her. The master becomes fearful of Cato's reaction. Cato places a gold coin on the table, declaring it's not for purchasing Evangeline, but for the master to seek medical help. Following this, Cato delivers a swift punch to the master's stomach, causing him to fall with a thud. Eva observes Cato's super talent, amazed at how a light jab could send the master flying. Cato comments on the master's condition, expressing annoyance if he were actually dead. Eva, somewhat dazed, suddenly bursts into laughter, finding the situation amusing. The master protests the seriousness of the matter, but Eva suggests Cato should have been gentler. Cato, showing hesitancy, admits his skepticism and offers an apology to Eva. She responds with a touch of sadness, remarking on his doubt even after receiving a discount. Cato, genuinely sorry, extends his hand and expresses regret for casting doubt on her a week ago, explaining his sensitivity due to concerns for Toes. Eva finds it unusual for a nobleman to apologize to his slave, but acknowledges the gesture. Eva offers her hand to Cato and questions if she deserves his apology. Cato affirms that she does and emphasizes that she is no longer a slave, assuring her that as long as he's around, no one will treat her as such. Eva feels reassured and grateful for his words. Eva sits in the carriage with Cadel, her eyes widening as she beholds the palace. She marvels at the grandeur of the Whittaker Duchy, realizing it surpasses her expectations. The Whittakers hold a prestigious status, akin to the imperial family, boasting the formidable knightage of the Moon Wolf and the intelligence group Moon Raven. They are revered as heroes of the Empire, and Cadel, as the successor, embodies this legacy. Lost in thought, Eva finds herself unintentionally staring at Cadel. Cadel notices her gaze and asks what's on her mind. Eva averts her eyes and stumbles over her words before swiftly changing the topic. She brings up Cadel's presence at the market yesterday, hinting at his timing and awareness of toes sneaking out. When Cadel responds cryptically, Eva clicks her tongue in response. The carriage comes to a halt, and as Eva descends, she is awestruck to see all the servants welcoming Cadel. Cadel inquires about Toes, but the butler explains that Toes is transcribing holy texts as per the Duke's order. Cadel remarks on the seemingly light punishment for Toes' unauthorized outing, to which the butler adds that steak is also off-limits for a while, prompting Cadel's sarcastic response. When the butler notices Eva, he inquires about her to Cadel. Cadel introduces her as Evangeline, stating that she will be part of their family from now on. Eva reacts in disbelief at the term family, and she starts to dream about herself with Toes, who is playing with her, while Cadel asks her if she will be his sister. Eva is taken aback, wondering if she will become a noble lady and be known as Lady Evangeline. However, Cadel informs the butler that she will be Elias' assistant. Eva is surprised by this revelation, as Elias is the genius alchemist recognized by the royal family. Eva is astounded by the prospect of becoming the assistant to the Duke's alchemist. She notices the distrustful looks from the maids around her. The butler asks if she is also an alchemist, to which Cadel responds by suggesting they send her to Elias first. He instructs the butler to arrange a room for her and introduce her to Mrs. Phil. Eva feels a sense of disappointment at not becoming a lady as she had hoped. However, she resolves that staying in the Duke's castle is the most crucial thing for her now. The butler offers to guide Eva, addressing her as my lady, which makes her feel uneasy. Despite her discomfort, the butler insists on using the title, explaining that it's the first time the young lord has taken someone in. Intrigued by the butler's words, Eva follows him, curious to see what awaits her. As Eva enters the palace, she's struck by its grandeur. Suddenly, she hears a voice saying, "Excuse me," prompting her to pause, feeling like she heard a noise. Glancing around, she sees a man with long green hair. He apologizes tearfully, expressing regret for being sent to this world and for she becoming Evangeline. Confused, Eva asks if he knows her. The man insists he couldn't forget her. Startled, Eva demands to know what he means, but the butler, unable to understand the situation, asks what's wrong. Eva points to where the man was but realizes he's gone. Eva attempts to explain about the green-haired servant, but the butler looks puzzled. Feeling embarrassed, she attributes it to exhaustion and apologizes. The butler reassures her with a smile, acknowledging the long journey. He points to the room and suggests she rest immediately. As she enters the room, Eva is impressed and exclaims, "Wow." The butler asks if she likes it, addressing her as my lady. Eva takes a quick look around and then turns to the butler, expressing her concern about a possible mistake. Butler politely requests Eva to call him by his first name, Hans. Eva observes that the room resembles the imperial princesses. Hans confirms it was indeed used by Princess Isolde during her visit. Learning this, Eva is startled and expresses concern about daring to stay in such a room. Hans reassures her, saying it's their pleasure and everyone would be happy if she chose the room. Eva feels conflicted, but suddenly realizes something about the man she encountered earlier. Eva turns around and once again sees the man with green hair. He apologizes, addressing her as Ms. Ryder, expressing his surprise at her soul being sent to Evangeline's body. He acknowledges her as the author of Servant Yesterday, Crown Princess Today. Eva's heartbeat increases as she feels nervous, realizing that he knows who she is. Eva can't understand how the man knew about her. She wonders who he is and if she will see him again. She accidentally bumps into the table, causing a glass object to fall and break, alarming Hans. Eva, still shaken by the encounter with the green-haired man, fears that he might harm her. Hans rushes to her aid, ensuring she is okay and saving her from the falling glass. Just then, a lady enters the room in anger, questioning if Hans is bothering Eva on her first day. Hans nervously denies the accusation. Mrs. Phil approaches Eva and curtsies politely, introducing herself as the head maid. Eva hesitantly returns the greeting and introduces herself as Evangeline. Mrs. Phil compliments Eva, saying she's even prettier than the young master described. Eva thanks her for the kind words. Mrs. Phil holds Eva's hand affectionately, noting how cute and adorable she is, but also remarks on her mature way of speaking. She then asks if Eva likes her room. Eva responds happily, saying yes, but feeling overwhelmed by the grandeur of it. She feels shy and believes the room doesn't suit her at all. Eva requests a smaller room, but Mrs. Phil, with a smile, refuses, stating that she can't allow it as Eva is now the lady the young master has taken in. Hans agrees with Mrs. Phil. Mrs. Phil then escorts Hans out of the room, and before leaving, Hans asks Eva if she'd like some snacks. After Hans leaves, Mrs. Phil, acknowledging Eva might be hungry, suggests it would be better for her to get cleaned up first. On Red Street, Eva was deprived of the luxury of bathing despite the daily sweat, and the accumulated filth became more tormenting than starvation or the cold. In a flashback during winter, Eva, elated to find warm water, decides to take a bath. As she cleans her face with the warm water, an evil man enters and forcibly shoves her into the snow, scolding her for pretending to be a noble. Apologizing and trembling in the cold, Eva begs for forgiveness, but the man throws cold water on her in the frigid atmosphere. After enduring such abuse on Red Street, Eva had forgotten the warmth of baths. She reflects on the possibility of Mrs. Phil discovering her origins and finding it unpleasant. Mrs. Phil bathes Eva. Eva feels shy and questions if she deserves such treatment. Mrs. Phil responds, suggesting that if Eva desires it, why not, addressing her as my lady. Eva holds the soap suds in her hand, expressing her delight and feeling respected, overwhelmed with happiness. Mrs. Phil notices the scars on Eva's body and begins to cry. Eva inquires about her tears, and Mrs. Phil explains that with age, people become sentimental, apologizing for her emotional display. Eva reassures Mrs. Phil, smiling and mentioning that she no longer feels pain. Mrs. Phil expresses her pride in Eva. Eva expresses curiosity as Mrs. Phil mentions being proud of her. Mrs. Phil responds affirmatively, highlighting Eva's journey through adversity and survival despite being covered in scars. She encourages Eva to eat well and grow healthy, assuring her that the scars will heal quickly and that everything will be all right from now on. Overwhelmed with emotion, Eva becomes teary, hugs Mrs. Phil tightly, and cries. After bathing, Mrs. Phil admires Eva's appearance, calling her a lovely lady. She positions Eva in front of the mirror and encourages her to greet her new self, dubbing her Hello Angel. Eva gazes at her reflection in the mirror, contemplating the implications of being called an angel and worrying about how others will perceive her, especially if they learn about her past as a slave. However, Kegel's reassuring words come to her mind. Nobody can call you a slave, Evangeline. Feeling comforted by this reminder, Eva realizes she's no longer a slave, which brings a smile to her face and makes her wonder why she's blushing. Mrs. Phil notices the adorable cat paw birthmark on Eva's back and expresses her admiration. Eva explains that it's just a birthmark and finds it quite unusual. Mrs. Phil reassures her, saying it looks like a kitten's paw and finds it cute. She then shares that she has a birthmark on her shoulder that resembles a big, ugly cow spot, but Eva disagrees, finding it not ugly at all. Eva reflects on how people used to mock her birthmark, associating it with being a mark of a slave. However, Mrs. Phil sees it as cute and treats her with sincerity, prompting Eva to reciprocate the kindness. Eva then expresses to Mrs. Phil that cow spots are cute too, genuinely meaning it. Mrs. Phil is momentarily taken aback and hugs Eva tightly, expressing her affection. Eva feels shy but appreciates the gesture. Mrs. Phil suggests Eva call her Phil, indicating her desire to be friends. Eva is suddenly reminded of an old memory from high school, where small things like a bag of snacks or a picture of a celebrity could bring immense joy and laughter. In that moment, she recalls her dearest friend, Haijung, who had a deep understanding of her, sometimes even more than her own mother. Eva sees a resemblance of that connection with Mrs. Phil. Eva smiles and agrees to be called her Phil and suggests that she call her Eva. Phil. Just then, there's a knock on the door and Hans, the butler, arrives on time. He informs Eva that His Grace is expecting her. Together with Mrs. Phil and Hans, Eva heads to meet him. Along the hallway, she notices a portrait of Brian Whittaker, the head of the great Whittaker household and the hero of the empire who defended against the invasion by the kingdom of Triberia. Considering his achievements, he is known to be quite easygoing. Eva reflects on relating his personality to some kind of animal, but can't recall which one. She resolves to find out for herself. Before entering the dining room, Eva feels nervousness creeping in. As she steps inside, she sees Toes, who appears excited about her presence. Kygel is in the middle of his meal. Suddenly, she notices a man with a cold expression. It's Duke Whittaker. Toes introduces Eva enthusiastically to his father, mentioning how she stood up for them when the shopkeeper insulted his parents and praising her bravery. The Duke rises from his chair, causing Eva to flinch nervously. As he leans toward her with a stern gaze, Eva tries to gather her nerves and want to say hello despite feeling anxious. Eva quickly bows to the Duke, saying hello and introducing herself as Evangeline. An awkward silence falls over the room and Eva starts to worry, fearing the Duke might not like her because of her nervousness. However, to her surprise, the Duke lifts her up, causing her confusion. He then expresses his approval, remarking on her loveliness and thanking Cadel for bringing her. Duke gazes at Eva, captivated by the silver and violet colors she possesses. He remarks, "You were born with precious colors." Eva nervously flinches and smiles, inquiring, "Why isn't he eating?" The Duke, amused, questions her concern and compliments her as a lovely girl. Cadel, angered by the behavior, interjects with a stern "Father." Duke reassures, "He'll eat in a minute." Duke expresses concern to Eva about her weight, stating that she needs to be fed well and taken care of. Eva wonders about being brushed. Duke instructs Hans to find the chef. Eva is shocked by Duke's words, expressing her surprise. Despite this, she smiles and mentions that she already has plenty to eat. Cadel becomes angry at Duke, asserting that Eva is not his pet. Taz agrees with Cadel, emphasizing that Eva is not like their cat Ming Ming. Cadel pleads with Duke to stop. Duke decides to call Eva Angel from now on. Eva is startled by this decision and questions Duke's sanity, while Taz and Cadel are also shocked by this sudden change. Duke addresses Eva as Angel and asks if she likes the name. Eva, feeling nervous, tries to ignore the question. Duke then talks about living happily ever after. Cadel, in anger, slams the table, which also angers Duke. Duke questions Cadel's audacity, asking if he is challenging his father. Cadel confirms his willingness to challenge. Duke criticizes Cadel for his boldness, accusing him of thinking he's the best in the Empire. Cadel retorts by questioning if he's not at least better than being a war hero past his prime. Duke warns Cadel not to cross the line and threatens to crush him, to which Cadel responds defiantly, saying they'll see who ends up crushed. Eva looks worriedly at Cadel and Duke, unsure of what to do in such a situation. Taz, appearing relaxed, passes bread to Eva and reassures her not to worry, mentioning that they engage in such disputes every other day. Despite Taz's reassurance, Eva remains nervous and questions if they are fighting for real. Taz confirms that they are indeed fighting. Eva expresses her disbelief that they would fight at the dinner table, to which Taz explains that it doesn't matter to them whether it's in the dining room or reception room. They even fought at the Imperial Palace. Perplexed, Eva wonders why they are fighting so frequently. As Cadel and Duke destroy the dining table with food, Eva becomes furious. She questions their actions at the dinner table, pointing out the ruined food and shattered dishes. Eva grabs a piece of food from the floor and expresses her frustration, reminding them that despite being nobles, they should know better. She shares her own experiences of scarcity and survival, highlighting that many children like her are on the streets. Eva takes a bite of the food, surprising Duke and Cadel. She becomes happy, describing it as delicious and tasty. Eva then reminds them that not everyone can have warm meals despite the wealth of the Whitaker family and urges them to remember their privilege as landowners. Eva realizes with dismay that it's happening again. She fears the consequences and flops onto a chair filled with regret for attempting to lecture the Duke. She feels she has nothing to justify her actions, even if she gets kicked out. Toes remarks on Eva's intelligence, which surprises her. He sits in front of Eva and explains that his teacher emphasizes the importance of considering the commoner's perspective to become a good lord, something he was taught the Whitakers should do. Eva feels relieved and smiles, gently patting Toes' head. She expresses her belief that Toes' teacher also taught him to be thankful for his food and not to waste any. Toes confirms this, surprised by Eva's insight. Eva beams, sharing that she was taught the same values. She taunts Duke and Cadel, suggesting that they missed those lessons. Duke and Cadel feel awkward under Eva's scrutiny. Eva becomes angry, questioning the wisdom of grown-ups quarreling in front of a young child like Toes and considering what he might learn from it. However, Duke begins to laugh, leaving Eva puzzled by his sudden change in demeanor. Duke expresses his fondness for Eva and acknowledges the valuable lessons she taught him. He kneels before her, promising not to take anything for granted and to refrain from quarreling in front of Toes. He asks for Eva's forgiveness. Feeling shy, Eva hides behind Toes, contemplating Duke's actions. She notes that he used a proper name and knelt before her, contrasting him with other nobles who prioritize their bloodline and look down on commoners. Eva beams and tells Duke that she is honored. She reflects on her happiness, even if she doesn't become a noble. Duke becomes emotional and lifts Eva, calling her angel and admiring her smile, triggering Cadel's anger. 1 month later, Eva waits for Cadel, who arrives and asks if she has been waiting long. Eva greets him excitedly as they walk together. She expresses her enthusiasm about starting to learn alchemy and meeting Mr. Elias. Cadel advises her not to get her hopes up too high, but then he observes Eva's hopeful expression and decides not to finish his sentence, suggesting that it's better for her to see for herself. They enter Elias' office, where Cadel introduces Eva as Elias' new assistant. Nervous but trying to maintain a smile, Eva begins to greet Elias, but he interrupts by slamming a book on the table, expressing anger and questioning Keitel's intentions. Keitel explains that Elias had mentioned being busy, so he found someone to help. Eva, feeling uncertain, realizes she needs to get along with him. Elias abruptly tells her to leave, cutting off any further discussion. In the flashback, Mrs. Phil informs Eva about Mr. Elias, describing him as a rare genius employed exclusively by the Duke of Whittaker. She mentions Elias's status as the youngest imperial alchemist and notes his unusual but helpful nature. Eva contemplates whether becoming an alchemist would be good for her. Mrs. Phil emphasizes that being an alchemist is a prestigious profession favored by nobles, and Mr. Elias himself holds great nobility. She explains that becoming an alchemist could lead to a debut in high society, even for non-nobles, and mentions the substantial pay that imperial alchemists receive, equivalent to that of a master knight. Here in the Empire of Charmel, women are socially active and have the status to succeed a title. Eva ponders this, considering that alchemists are rare in Charmel, making it potentially the best profession for a female commoner. She wonders if this is why she's being introduced to Elias. Excited by the prospect, she resolves to do her best. However, in the present moment, witnessing Elias' anger, Eva becomes nervous. Elias angrily orders Eva to leave while he's asking nicely. Seeing the situation, Eva wonders if she'll even be able to become an alchemist. However, Keitel smiles and explains that Elias is extremely shy, asking Eva to understand. Elias interrupts, questioning if they're ignoring him. Keitel defends Eva, stating that she's smarter than Elias thinks and asks him to teach her well. Elias dismisses the idea, insisting he asks for a new alchemist, not someone like Eva, whom he refers to as trash. Hearing this, Eva is filled with rage. Eva, despite her anger, gathers herself and tells Elias that she will do her best not to be considered trash. Elias responds harshly, stating that those without talent are trash simply by existing. Keitel interjects, suggesting that Eva might become a better alchemist than Elias someday, which Elias scoffs at. Eva finds the situation annoying. Keitel comforts her by patting her head, explaining that Elias has a sharp tongue but isn't a bad person, at least in his opinion. Eva giggles and agrees, realizing that Keitel cares for her. Eva confidently tells Keitel that she'll do her best, addressing him as young master. Keitel is shocked by this sudden address and turns away, leaving Eva puzzled. She questions what's wrong, but Keitel brushes it off, saying they'll talk later as he leaves. Eva is left wondering why Keitel looks so upset and ponders over her addressing him as young master. Elias interrupts, expressing his annoyance and questioning Eva for making Keitel flustered. Elias remarks on Eva's unique silver hair, questioning if she considers herself a stunning beauty. Eva is dazed by the comment, shocked and disbelieving. After a moment, she picks up a book, but her thoughts linger on Elias's rude question and her own perception of her beauty. She momentarily considers herself a divine beauty, but then realizes her nervousness and questions the book's contents. Elias mocks her, questioning why she's looking at a book she can't even understand and reiterating his belief that she's useless there. Eva responds angrily, stating that no one is perfect from the start. Elias calmly asserts that he was perfect from the beginning, citing his vast knowledge of materials and formulas. He boasts about his ability to produce potions after analyzing them just once and warns Eva that she won't be able to learn anyway. He suggests she leave while she can still get a gentle send-off, issuing his final warning. Eva giggles in response, irritating Elias, who questions if she just scoffed at him, referring her as silver hair. Eva confidently tells Elias that he's funny because he can't kick her out but doesn't want to let her be. Elias flinches at her words. She accuses him of trying to scare her. Frustrated, Elias calls her a little brat. Eva laughs, sarcastically acknowledging his greatness as a genius alchemist. She proposes a bet. If she loses, she'll leave without a word, but if she wins, he must accept her as his assistant.